Good morning, Pastor Ron Jetter, Immanuel Lutheran Church, Grandview, Washington. 24th of October, it is Saturday, and I guess it's still 2020. A friend of mine sent me some funny signs the other day, and one of them said, "The worst purchase I made in 2020? A planner." Another one said, "Yes, I'm going to stay up until midnight on New Year's Eve, not to greet 2021, but just to make sure that 2020 leaves." It's been that kind of year. I regularly check the weather report on my phone. Yesterday I was at the church getting ready for the annual meeting, came out and my car was wet, and yet my phone still said 0 chance of precipitation. I guess it was just cold enough that was heavy dew condensing out of the air. Not sure, but the sidewalk was wet. Food box, incidentally, the blessing box was completely empty, and I put some food in there. We've been putting lots and lots of food in this week as the cold now sets in. We expect people are going to be really needing that food. But again, I thank all of you for bringing food, and if you need me ever to come pick up food for you, I am happy to do that, or to go shopping for food so that we can continue to feed the families around the church, because they represent in some ways the best opportunities for outreach that we have right now and going forward. Speaking of outreach, God chose Moses as an evangelist to try to convince Pharaoh that God was God and that the Israelites were God's people. Moses took his brother along, of course, but God said, "I will harden Pharaoh's heart." It's interesting the way it says that God is the actor in that. God uses Pharaoh's arrogance, his stubbornness, the fact that Pharaohs call themselves gods. And so now it's time for plagues. We are in chapter 7. We are in verse 14. The Lord said to Moses, "Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refuses to let the people go." Well, I don't think that's news to Moses. God doesn't have to tell Moses that. "Go to Pharaoh in the morning as he's going out to the water. Stand by the riverbank to meet him, and take in your hand the staff that was turned into a snake. Say to him, 'The Lord, the God of Hebrews, sent me to you to say, let my people go so that they may worship me in the wilderness. But until now you have not listened. Thus says the Lord, by this you shall know that I am the Lord. See, with the staff that is in my hand, I will strike the water that is in the Nile, and it shall be turned to blood. The fish shall die, the river shall stink, the Egyptians shall be unable to drink water from the Nile.'" And so he does this. And it says there in verse 19, even water in vessels of wood and vessels of stone. So water that they had already taken from the river. I guess the river was clean enough they could just drink it then. We don't today without treating it chemically or boiling it. I've done a lot of hikes with Boy Scouts over the years, and we often had to rely on a lake or a stream to replenish our water, to cook with it at night or to put it in our canteens. And we would bring along some kind of a container that we could put either iodine or chlorine in. It was a lot easier and quicker than having to bring along, when you're hiking and got to take everything up that mountain with you, take along a big enough pot, and then have to find enough wood to start a fire to boil that water. A lot easier to treat it chemically, even though it tasted like chemically treated water. At least it was safe to drink. Water is everything. And so by turning all of the water to blood, now they've got this smell they can't drink. Verse 24, the Egyptians had to drink along the Nile for water to drink. They could not drink the water of the river. So if you ever have dug a little hole a ways away from the river where the water will gradually seep in, you can dig a hole and then the water will fill that hole, can take water out and then let the water come back in. It's a slow process as the water works its way through sand and dirt. But that's how you get water when you need to. And then you still have to find ways to filter it and boil it and all that today. But somehow they survived. Verse 25, 7 days passed after the Lord had struck the Nile. So God's in no hurry. After all, this has been brewing for 400 years since Joseph went down to Egypt, sold as a slave, only to become Pharaoh's right-hand man. 400 years. So what's another week? Yeah, and I kind of relate to that after all. It has been, March 12th, March 15th, March is the 3rd month of the year. October is the 10th month. That means that for over 7 months, we've been meeting like this online to worship, even though we are now worshiping in person. We are still worshiping online simultaneously, and I encourage anyone who has any reservations at all or any kind of risk factors, don't come to the church in person. Come to the church through your computer as you are comfortable doing now. We'll continue to be together like this as long as we need to, and there will be a few of us in the church. We've taken every precaution that the best of science can inform us to do. But the risk is not zero when people are in the same room. Therefore, stay home and worship. We're still together. Okay, a week's gone by. Let's jump to chapter 8 and another plague. The Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, 'Thus says the Lord, let my people go so that they may,'" you've guessed it, "worship me on the mountain," and so on and so forth. "And if you refuse this time, you get frogs. The river shall swarm with frogs. They shall come up into your palace, into your bedchamber and your bed, and into the houses of your officials and your people, into your ovens and your kneading bowls." Yeah, I like frogs. Frogs are kind of cute. There's nothing wrong with frogs. I was up at Rimrock not all that long ago, up on White Pass. The kids were camping there with the grandkids, and so we drove up for a few hours just to see them. We walked down to the reservoir, and was in August. There were frogs, hundreds and hundreds of frogs. There were pollywogs, tadpoles, every phase of frogs. Teeny little frogs in the mud where gradually the reservoir draws down as we use that water for irrigating. The frogs have laid eggs in those, and then the eggs hatch out. They're close enough to the water so that when they're in that swimming phase, that tadpole phase, they can swim, and then the water recedes, and there they are in the mud. And I mean, you could not walk anywhere without stepping on frogs, so we had to be very careful. Now, the kids at 2, 4, and 7 years old loved all the little frogs crawling. They could get hands full of frog. They wanted to take frogs home, and it's fun. But imagine grown-up frogs by the hundreds, the thousands, the million in your kitchen. Yeah. But as with before, the magicians did the same thing by their secret arts. I forgot to mention in chapter 7 that the magicians could also turn water to blood and make it stink. So they had chemicals that they could do things with. We have chemicals that we can make things stink with and turn them red. Iron, put iron in water and iron scrapings, and it turns to rust and turns the water red. Add a little bit of sulfur to it and it will smell like rotten eggs. Sure, that's not that hard to do. So the magicians, the frogs, I don't know. I'm not sure how to do the frogs, but anyway, they were able to do frogs. Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron, verse 8, and says, "Pray to the Lord to take the frogs away from me and my people, and I will let the people go to sacrifice to the Lord." Moses said to Pharaoh, kindly tell me when I am to pray for you and your officials and for your people, that the frogs may be removed from you and your houses and be left only in the Nile. He said, tomorrow. Not today? Oh, this is another curious thing. Tomorrow. Well, someone once said, never do today what you can put off till tomorrow. Tomorrow, Moses says, as you say, so that you may know that there is no one like the Lord our God. All the frogs shall leave your house, you and your officials and your people. They shall be left only in the Nile. Moses cried out to the Lord concerning the frogs. The Lord did as Moses requested. The frogs died in the houses, the courtyards, and the field. They gathered them up in heaps, and the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was a respite, he hardened his heart and would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. Okay, I can't stand this. Please, I'll do anything you want. And as soon as you do it, oh, never mind. I didn't mean it. I take it back. I'll say whatever I can to get you to do what I want you to do, but I will not follow through. I have no integrity. This is Pharaoh. See you tomorrow morning. No Sunday school tomorrow morning. Instead, we worship at 10, and immediately after that, by 11 o'clock, we will start the annual meeting of the congregation. See you there.